So I'm here with Susan and Fran from Evergreen Valley Farm, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Susan Lynch. I'm Senior Counsel for Elder Justice at the Department of Justice, and we own Evergreen Valley Farm.
My name is Fran Swift. I'm a federal contractor.
So where exactly is the proposed path of the power lines if they are to go through here?
Yeah, so sadly, you can see the panorama back here. If the power lines, the tall power lines, were to come through this property, they would cut right down the center of our property there and then go absolutely diagonally across this horse pasture, which is our largest horse pasture for most of our horses, and then cut down over the hill through the trees, through the wetlands and the stream that meets up with Big Pipe Creek.
So Susan was saying that this farm is primarily a brood mare farm to breed, and I think there's a lot of questions involving EMFs and the health. How do you feel this farm is going to be able to keep doing what it's doing with the power line, or do you think that this farm will be able to keep doing what it's doing if the power lines are constructed?
Yeah, we're really, really concerned. I mean, our business here is brood mares and babies, Hanoverians, Percherons, thoroughbreds. And, the research indicates for baby humans, 50% of the research says that these have a negative effect, I mean, in terms of cancer for children, which is shocking. What we're concerned about is, horses, even though they've been around forever, they're very delicate flowers, and keeping a mare pregnant is a difficult thing. We're very concerned. I mean, again, as I said, these horses would be existing right under these loud power lines with their negative impact. So it could really significantly impact the ability of our horses to stay and be pregnant.
So I've said this a lot of times, but I really think that there needs to be advanced studies done on the effects EMF have on animals, just mammals in general, involving leukemia and cancer, because there has been shown to be a small link between childhood leukemia and EMF. So I think there needs to be a lot more studies done involving that, especially because if the power lines are going to go through farms like this that are already, making money doing something like this, I think it could really hurt that business. Something we touched on is when the lines go through. What do you think will happen to your horses? Do you have a plan to do something with your horses? What do you think you're going to do with them?
Right. Well, so we're really, really concerned about that. I mean, this is a 9.5 acre pasture for most of our horses, and the power lines would cut right through it. And we have our one source of well water up on the top of this hill. Our question is how long it's going to take to construct these massive power lines, we don't know. But we can't take all of our horses and stuff them in this little pasture. That doesn't comport with Carroll County regulations. And so we would hope that there aren't any power lines. But if there were power lines, what we really expect is that the power company would construct additional farming, raise up a well over on that side that is not subject to this construction, so that we could keep our horses on the property healthy and safe while they're constructing.
As you can tell, there's a lot of factors that PSEG hasn't really put into their planning process when they made these models. That could be a very expensive process. Another piece of that is the fields themselves. If they come through and bulldoze the fences, will they reconstruct them? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, right. I mean, any fencing that's destroyed, I can tell you, we've paid thousands and thousands of dollars, many thousands, to build these fences. Wood being what it is, and we would need that to be taken care of. And I should also mention, your question makes me think of it. You came down the narrow driveway to our property. That's a narrow new driveway. Will it support all of this equipment, and how? This is just, this is planting. What if it's a rainy day? How are they going to get all that equipment down that narrow driveway and up here in the first instance? Where is the road access? So those are all very practical considerations that aren't really shown when you see a big yellow line across the property.
Yeah, and if they do come up through, any number of ways, are they going to come back and fix any damage that they cause with this large equipment? I mean, large equipment in the mud can cause a lot of problems, so I think that's something that needs to be thought about. Another thing is, this is another farm that's in preservation. What do you, how, how did you interpret putting your farm into preservation? How did you interpret that process?
Yeah, I mean, as it says on the signs, farmland forever. And so what we really thought was we're pretty close to the airport here, which is yet another issue. We thought that there's a lot of development in the area, and we felt like we wanted to preserve this land, which is historic, which the house was built in 1845. Soldiers stayed here in the Civil War when they were injured, and we thought that this meant no construction on this property other than farm construction. And the thought that there's going to be, a couple of 100 feet by a couple of 100 feet wide power lines rolling through the property is the last thing we thought about. I mean, you'd rather have a bunch of townhouses, which is what we didn't want. So again, we feel very badly about that, and we feel that it's not consistent with, preserve.
So how have your feelings on preservation easements changed since the announcement of this project?
Right. Well, my hope is that the preservation easements will stand stronger than this project. If the project is able to overtake the preservation easements, then that is an exception that we never expected.
And you touched a little bit about on the history of the house. You mentioned earlier about it being a hospital. Was that correct? Do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So again, the house was built in 1845, bricks and colonial. We can't really see from here, but there was a lot of Civil War history in this area, and our understanding is that this house was a place where soldiers stayed to recuperate, and so it has a tremendous amount of history. And
This is the house that used to be a hospital, and I want to highlight in the next clip how beautiful the view from the front of the house is.
And the other thing I should say is, if you look at the plots, this land, has been this way for hundreds of years. And once you put power lines across it, that scar lasts forever.
So I think you should start to notice, if you've been following this series, a set of reoccurring themes about farmlands and preservation. It seems that the line was made almost with farmlands and preservation as the main, target. I feel like this was because farmlands and preservation are cheaper pieces of land, valued as cheaper pieces of land, because you're not allowed to construct on these places. So I think that should be looked into, is what were the criteria used in developing this route? Because I think the pattern that can be easily seen if you follow the series is they went and they picked places that were in preservation. Susan, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Fran, thank you so much for your time.
Right.